Hi, I'm Alex Williams of the new Stack here at I Love APIs conference, Apigee's big event. Tell us who you are, sir.
Hi, my name is Allen Rodgers. I am a product director for Pearson Education.
So I wanted to talk to you about the future of APIs, really, and you have been a relatively early adopter of APIs and API platforms. Where do you want to go with APIs? How are you trying to make it more relevant to your business, and what are some of the things you're thinking about over the next 12 to 18 months?
So it's a great question, only in that we still are having a tremendous amount of conversations on that exact topic. I think where we ultimately want to go with APIs is trying to really understand what the value of Pearson is, and then represent that value through our APIs. So if we look at it from that perspective, our value is content and really insight. And so the notion of being able to have APIs that provide content and actually receive data so that we can determine the efficacy of that content or of those tools, I think ultimately is where we will be going. And that's probably the next 5 to 10 years. In the meantime, a lot of what we're doing is really trying to turn our company into what would be considered a learning company. So in the past, we've had very, very many assets that were around learning, but our core business was publishing. So now we're looking at how we can take all of these core assets and really impact the learning experience. And so over the next 10 to 15 months, what you will see is that the amount of products that we're actually reproducing or producing with an associated API experience that integrate quite nicely will start to hit the market. Our investment in 2015 is to build something similar to a platform as a service, but really for internal consumption. And so the notion is building out a platform so that we can quickly develop applications on top of those, and then expose APIs for each one of these products as an experience platform.
Okay.
So what I learned at Apigee yesterday is we are building a product platform to support a series of experience platforms.
Right.
And so ideally you will see a lot more of our products, a lot more of our services, and actually exposing insight as APIs. And
so how do you define insights?
So insights would be collecting information on how a certain content performs, how tools performs in the learning experience, and being able then to adjust that to make it more effective.
Okay.
Data insights really are the result of the collection and analysis of data. And so Pearson being in this business for as long as we have tons of data that are very reflective of how our particular assets have performed in the market. When I say assets, those would be homework content, homework tools, online courses, these type of things. And so collecting or leveraging that data with some of the newer technologies around big data and new data that we're receiving, we're actually able to form insights of how well a particular asset is working. And one of the mandates of Pearson that really came out with our new CEO, John Fallon, is the notion of efficacy. Every one of our products, whether it's content, infrastructure, applications, we have to prove efficacy from day one before we're approved to build it.
What does that mean?
So yeah, efficacy is an interesting word, and I think it's actually adopted from the pharmaceutical. Basically what it means is that effective at the end of the day. So we have to prove the effectiveness on the learner of a particular product that we're delivering. And in some cases, we can do that through insights that we already have.
It's a scientific term, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's used, for instance, to kind of almost like describe kind of a process in a laboratory setting in some respects, like to prove the efficacy of a drug.
No, and that's actually a much better explanation. And so taking off on that, it is a process. And so you can start with, this is what we believe will be effective based on data we have, but we actually have to include in our products the ability to collect enough data on how the learner is using it so we can continue that spectrum and improve efficacy or disprove that it's not effective in this case.
So that is what you will be doing over the next 12 to 18 months or however long it takes to continue to collect that data to, really define those insights and follow those principles of the efficacy related to APIs?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I would say it's the challenge is that APIs are still relatively new, and there will be implied efficacy. So what I mean by that is instead of the efficacy on a particular API, the efficacy will start with the user experience around that API, right? So a product that we build, such as Revel, which is a series of homework for students, or it could be something the client has actually built with that. Now, if we can determine the efficacy of those products, then there's an implied efficacy of the API and how it's used. The challenge is that the flip side of that is somebody else could develop product C, and we determine that it's not effective in learning. That does not necessarily translate to the API not being effective. It's the use case around the particular implementation of that API that would determine efficacy in this case.
So you must really be thinking about API design and how you manage the design process and how you build those APIs and how you deploy them and collect the data and manage them over time, because you can't get what you're talking about without doing it.
Right. And it's one of these approaches to build something in a way that it does not eliminate the possibility of something. A lot of times when you develop technology, you will inadvertently limit your ability to do something with that later. And what I mean by that is that as we develop APIs, obviously we follow very good guidelines on these APIs, but the harder and maybe the more subtle art of this is if in a year we need to extend this API to collect data X or to provide functionality Y, we need to ensure that that can be done without having to rewrite the entire API or the entire infrastructure behind that. Because obviously in that situation, if you have a lot of people using those APIs and we break that API, we've got a pretty bad situation. Or if we version that API, a lot of our consumers are still on the hook within a certain amount of time to upgrade their applications. And the one thing we know is that over the next year or two, in terms of insights, we will be learning more than we ever have in the past. And so what that translates to from a technology perspective is a rapid cycle of getting something out there, improving it. Again, the challenge is how do you balance that with an API? You don't want to get an API out there and then deprecate it in 2 months and deprecate it. And so really our design strategy is to ensure as best we can that we don't eliminate the possibility of additive changes rather than just breaking changes to the API.
Well, thank you very much, Allen, for taking some time to talk to us. I like this course that you're following. It's I write a lot about these types of topics and issues, and I don't get the chance to talk to the end users like yourself, so thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, no, it's been my absolute pleasure.
We should follow up, because there's some interesting stories there.
I would love to.
Great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.